familia, and welcome to another episode of Fire and Butterflies, where vulnerability meets authenticity, where courage meets love, and where fire meets butterflies. And I am your host, Coma de Cristal. And today I am honored and privileged to have another amazing guest on my show, Dr. Theresa B. Skaar, badass coach. Before we started this, I told her, I'm just going to rename you. I'm going to say badass coach.
I love it. I love it.
So yes, hi, Dr. I'm going to
Hi.
call you Dr. T for short because
Perfect.
that
Perfect.
stuck with
Yes.
me.
Yes. It's nice, quick, and easy.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
So please, Dr. T, introduce yourself. Tell us, who are you?
Oh, who am I? Well, I am delighted to be on your show. So thank you so much for having me. So that's number one, who I am today. And yeah, Dr. Theresa B. Skaar. So what does that mean? It means that I have had a long, windy path to this moment. And at some point along the journey, I went to grad school to get a degree in social psychology. And I'm also trained in meditation and mindfulness. So I'm qualified to teach mindfulness-based stress reduction, which is an 8-week course. John Kabat-Zinn created that program. And then also I'm certified in mind-body medicine, and that's out of the Center for Mind-Body Medicine. And so I wear a lot of hats from my journey, right? So I worked as a nursing assistant in the way, and like that was my first career. And then
Wow.
and then I worked in corporate. So I worked as in insurance. So I was a claims adjuster, I was a claims assistant first, and then I worked at an engineering firm where I wore a lot of hats. I was hired as a marketing assistant, became an executive assistant. I was like an office manager, HR. And then my last iteration was as a project accountant, which wasn't a great fit, but it has led me to where I am today. And so all of this, I was a late in life. I'm a lifelong learner, but I was a late in life actually degree holder. So I got my undergraduate degree when I was 41, and then I graduated with my PhD when I was 51. So
Oh,
yeah. And so now I get to
wow.
do, I don't know, I get to do what I love to do, which is create meaning and difference and empower people to meet their life with more curiosity, ease, and joy.
Oh, I love all of this, Dr. T. I love this. I love this, love this, love this for you. And it's funny because one of the things that I'm hearing also, it's never too late. You
No.
know, we live in a society that promotes youth, that really pushes for youth. And as we age, we start to really feel that oh my God, my life is not where it needs to be. And it's not too late. It's never too late. So
No, there's a great quote. It's I think George Eliot, but it's something on the order of it's never too late to be who you might have been or something like that. And when you apply to grad school, you have to do a personal statement, and so that was my quote at the top, and it just is a quote that keeps coming back. And I it's interesting because, and I don't know if it's because I worked with older adults for so
mhm,
many years at the beginning of my career
mhm.
that I never thought of it as a barrier. Like, I mean, I never thought I mean, life was its own barrier, right?
Yes.
So I started school when I was 18, but I went spring
Mhm.
semester or spring quarter. So like everyone was in party mode, and I just was like, oh, I guess we party now. Dismal results.
Yeah.
I slept through my first ever college exam. That was a
Oh.
real freak out. And so then I had this windy path where I'd like do fits and starts, right? I'd go to community college, take a couple classes, and then I'd go here, and then I'd go there. And so to be able to go full time as a grown adult, like in my late 30s, and again graduating when I was 41, was a huge gift. And that was because
Wow.
I was supported, number one, by my husband, who was like, yes. I mean, he's always been the like, well, yeah, try it. And then I had been laid off. So I was on
Mhm,
unemployment. And as a,
mhm.
older adult, you're able to do those kind of continuing ed
Yeah.
things. So yeah.
I hear that. So yes, let's dive in. Let's talk about that. That's the question that I love to start off with everyone. It's tell us about your rock bottom. What was that pivotal point in your life, in your journey, wherever you want to
Mm.
start off with, that got you to be this badass coach that you are today.
Thanks so much. That's a great question because I'm like, which rock bottom? And I think I heard you talk on your opening episode. And if people haven't checked that out, you should go back and listen
Yes,
because that was
absolutely.
fun. You talked about different milestones. So I would say, I'm a twin. That's not a rock bottom, but we were born to someone, so single parent household. I never met my dad. So that's been kind of in the mix of like making, kind of peace and understanding and figuring that out in the
Mm-hmm,
world.
hmm. Yeah.
Um, and I'll often say like, well, you don't miss what you don't have. And I've seen people who have had very different experiences, right, with their own dads. So I'm like, well, maybe it's okay. And it is what it is. And then I, went, and like I said, I would do school and work, and bills have to get paid. And I met my husband when I was 33, almost 34. And so I was also, met him a little bit later. And then since then, it's just been like, uphill and support. However, in there has been work stuff, right? So I mentioned that I was laid off. Well, I worked at a place. Oh, so I worked at the engineering firm for over a decade.
Mm-hmm,
And
hmm.
then I had lost a bunch of meaning and purpose. My grandma had passed away and she was more like a mom to me. And my boss, who I loved, a dear friend, he moved to like the corporate office. And so
Yeah.
so it was like just this like meaning and purpose kind of all left at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was offered a job at a small family owned uh what do you call it? Like they headhunt people and they find jobs for people. And I had people say, don't do it, don't do it. And I was like, I can't find any more meaning, at this
Mm-hmm.
job that I have and all the people that I love there. So I went and oh my God, I cried almost every day. Like I
Oh,
hated it. I
yeah.
hated it. It was so like I mean for many, many reasons, but that was a real low point because,
Yeah.
and even Charlie, at some before I got laid off, he was like, I don't know how much longer we can do like not he and I, but like that
Mm-hmm.
I would come home with this like dark cloud over me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't even have like the energy or the oomph to look for another job. I just felt
Yeah.
stuck. I felt so stuck. So that's a
Oh.
real so I'll say two things. So before I met Charlie and all the dating I did, that was a low point. And then meeting, so then I mean, it was. I was like,
No, again, I'm not laughing at you. I am laughing with you.
100%,
100
100%. I love
trust.
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, dating, we could do a whole thing on dating.
We
So
can. We
that
absolutely can.
and then I bring that up because then this low point with this employer, both couldn't see my way out, right? Like both I
Mhm.
was like, I don't know what to do about dating. And then with this job, I was like, I don't know what to do. And I will tell you, and this gets where I'm a little woo adjacent. I mean, both things turned out better than I could have ever even
Yeah.
imagined or pictured, right? So
Mm-hmm.
as the
Mm-hmm.
economic downturn was coming and I'm at this job and I'm just miserable and the bosses would go and shut their doors and I could see both of their offices from where I sat and I would just stare and I'd
Oh,
go, off, lay me off. I would just whisper, like, lay me off. Like
yes,
I
yes,
wanted it. And I don't know how many people actually like invite that, but for
yes.
me, I was like, I don't even know how to get out of this. And so they did. And I often think about, being like, oh, I should send them flowers and be like, thanks for being such
Yeah.
such naughties, because I wouldn't have, I mean, I got to finish my undergrad degree. I then met my mentor and went to
Mm.
grad school. No one in my family has gone to grad school.
Oh,
And my
wow.
sister and I are first generation college. So, that wasn't like part of like our family story or
Yeah.
history. So, yeah.
Oh, wow, Dr. T. Wow. That is talk yeah, talk about praying and having your answers prayed.
Hmm.
And I think that like that's something that is a theme in the podcasts for a lot of the loyal listeners. Like like I talk so much about me in the prayer and just and asking. And sometimes even prayer, even though when we're not praying to God in itself, like it's, you were just saying like, lay me off. Like you were manifesting, like you, that's what you were putting out to the
Yes,
universe.
yes,
I tell
yes.
people this is why you gotta be careful with what you say, especially if it's not
Yes,
what you want.
yes.
But I'm so
I mean, because I
yeah,
believe your words create your reality, you know. So
100.
there's a great quote that leads you through all that. But the
Hmm.
the gist of it is yes, watch your
Yeah.
words because they are, they're being received. And
Hmm.
so how do you talk about things? My husband just this week, and I'll call him Charlie because that's his name, but so this past weekend we were at of all things a four-wheel drive convention, which was a novel new experience. But it's their fundraiser, and we bought raffle tickets. And Charlie's like, ugh, I don't even know why I buy these things. I never win. I'm like, well, then you're never going to win because if
Yes.
this is what your mindset is, and guess what? We didn't win anything. I mean, so I'm like, okay, I can't manifest it for both of us.
Hmm. Hmm. No, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so you went, you got laid off, you went into school, PhD. So that is a good question. Why pursue your doctorate degree? What was it that was really putting you in that direction? Because I mean, you could have gone in multiple other ways. So I'm curious because uh I my undergrad was sociology.
Oh,
So I've
yes.
always have been fascinated with how society works
Mm-hmm.
as a whole. Psychology is, I mean, that in itself is a beautiful topic and subject and everything.
Look at
Um,
your eyes just light
I know.
up. I
I'm like,
love it.
well, because it is. It's so fascinating how our brain works, and once we
Yes.
start to really, I mean, this is your podcast episode, not mine. But please
No,
tell
we're
us
this is
what
our
got you.
podcast episode. Let's
100%,
yeah,
100. Thank you.
we're
So tell me, like,
creating it.
what, why psychology? What was that about?
Well, psychology for my undergrad was kind of a no-brainer because I was always like just drawn to that. And for graduate school, I had this advisor. She was my undergrad advisor, Carrie Clayman. Shout out to her. And she, then became my mentor. But after I graduated, we'd meet for breakfast or lunch, and she's like, "So you're just gonna work at that office job?" Because I had gone back to the engineering firm. And I was like, "Yeah, I have vacation. The people I work with are great. The money's good. Like, I never thought I'd get my undergrad away with these thoughts of grad school, right?" Well, then, the universe conspires in your favor, and I do believe that. And so all of a sudden, like so because I had that's such a weird thing, but because I had been gone from the engineering firm for longer than a year, I didn't get all my vacation days back, but they didn't find that out right away, right? So then all of a sudden it was like, oh, you don't get your 4 weeks, you get 2 weeks. And I was like, I don't want to go back to 2 weeks. And then my hours got cut because things were going on with different projects. And so that cuts the money, right? So it's like each thing that I had said, like, oh, this is why I'm staying, was shifting. And so I met with Carrie for dinner and I said, okay, how do you do this grad school thing? And she told me. I have it framed in my office, and I wrote it on a scrap of paper. And basically, I did what she told me to do. Oh, before that, I'll back up because then I talked to Charlie seriously and I was like, okay, this could mean moving out of state. Like, what do we think about this? And he said the best thing. He said, think about your bookshelf. And I'm lucky enough to have the books behind me and then some. And he said, think about your bookshelf. And he's like, would you want to get paid to do something that you're doing for free already? Because I was already drawn to this type of reading and type of looking and trying to understand why we do what we do. And so getting into this program, it's an interdisciplinary social psych program. So it's sociology and psychology. And I had never taken a sociology
What?
class before
That is
this. Yeah,
phenomenal.
right. So it's like this, like from the things that delight you. It's a real nice mesh. And I didn't know. And then also Brene Brown,
Mm,
who I love, her book Daring Greatly. So
yes.
in it, she talks about research and her storytelling, right? And she does it really well in her TED Talks as well. And I didn't know that stories could be research. So I had always
Mhm.
seen research as numbers, and I'm like, no, thank you. But stories, words, like, yes, tell me your story. Like, that's my jam. Charlie calls me a can opener. He's like, you just open up anyone, they will just like tell you stuff. And so
Yes, yes.
once I found out that could be research, and then the University of Nevada, Reno, they have something called the Sanford Center for Aging, which is part of the university, and I've always been drawn to aging and things like that. So I really wanted to go there for that reason. And so I was lucky enough to be accepted into a program, which is actually pretty hardcore, but I didn't know that either. Which again, when you're in the flow and you're doing the right thing, I don't know.
You just gotta, yes, you just gotta trust the process. Oh, I love this. I love this. Especially because, it's funny. So that's a really nice segue to the next question that I'm thinking about, because that is one of the things that I was attracted so much to you when you reached out to me in regards to collaborating on your podcast. Was creating connections was one, the
Mhm.
title. I was like, creating connections with Dr. T, of course. But there was, oh, because I checked out your website, I did my own research, because I truly believe, like, when you do things, it has to align with you. You just don't do
Yeah,
them out of desperation. And
absolutely.
and I really enjoyed the how you specialize with aging. And I
Mhm.
think you call it aging gracefully, or
Mindfully.
mindfully, thankfully. I'm like,
Hmm.
it's not gracefully, but mindfully, aging mindfully. And when I started like looking into that a little bit more, I was just like, this is good stuff. This is really good stuff, because we don't we don't and I think I speak for myself. I cannot speak for everyone out there in this world, but I speak for myself. I I'm not considered old, by people's standards, like society standards, but I'm no longer considered young by society. Like
Mm,
I have reached this place where I'm like, what do I do? Like I'm not I don't know. I don't know who I am. Like I don't know what I am. And
mhm.
it's been an interesting journey for myself to like rediscover that parts of me, especially because I've picked up new roles in my life as a mom. And I
Yeah.
mean, I've had to grieve singleness, because
Mhm.
there's that grieving part of it. And so when I saw that aging mindful, and I was like, yeah, that's right. I need to be more aware of this stuff. So talk a little bit more about that. Like why, like what is it that has really brought you into serving who it is that you serve with all of this amazing medicine?
Oh, thank you. It I love calling it medicine. That's awesome. I like the sound of that. And I would hope for that. So in my dissertation, I interviewed and then surveyed because I had to do survey stuff. I'm brushing that away with my hand. But I interviewed women who were 50 and older who had recently lost their moms. So I was talking to
Mm,
them about grief and focusing practices and what was that. So in my head, I kind of always had this like buckets, like here's aging, here's grief, because I did talk about I taught aging to undergrads for 7 years. So I got to talk to about their own aging, and I loved every single minute of that. I mean, except for grading at the end of the semester, but like the actual teaching and engaging with students about their, because they're like 18, they're like, what do I care about aging? And I'm like,
yeah.
actually, and this was our slogan, everybody's aging, because
Yes.
like from the minute you're born, you're aging. But we have
Yes.
this kind of milestone of like at a certain point in your 30s or whenever it is, we start thinking about that. Or you're saying you're kind of in this middle, you're not young, you're not old, but you've also had a lot of life transitions, like major
Mm-hmm.
transitions
Yeah.
between grief and relationship loss and becoming a mom and all of those things. So like, and creating a business, come on,
Yes.
like
Oh
let's
my, yes.
let's just like let's just put that out there, no
Let's keep
big.
it real.
Yeah, no big deal. Yeah, it's fine. Just doing all the things. So yeah, and then the body I come back to, because we all have containers, and I've done a lot of like my own personal work on befriending my body, and like how
Mm,
how do I do that? And so when uh, so when I moved back to Minnesota, so we lived in Reno while I was in school. I graduated and then I was the director of the gerontology academic program. So I had a small team and, again, got to work at the Sanford Center for Aging and do really cool things and outreach and all of that. When we decided to come back home to Minnesota, that was when also then again, Charlie going like, yeah, like it's time for you to do your thing and not be, doing someone else's thing. Because what he had said to me was, I supported you through grad school because I believe in you and your vision, not because I want you to create someone else's vision for them. And so I was like,
Mm.
okay, okay. Like, I mean, yeah, like that's amazing
Right?
and such a
Oh,
gift. But yeah, but scary. So then I'm coming here and I'm like trying to figure out my website and how do you do that? And what am I actually doing? Am I, am I speaking? Am I this? Am I that? And then so I'm pointing over towards my wall because I have one of those big, kind of post-it notes. And I had these buckets. Okay, this is what I do in mindfulness. And, for me, mindfulness weaves throughout all of it.
mhm.
Anything that I teach, talk about, or do, there's an underlying, kind of that awareness and
Yes.
curiosity and
Mhm.
exploring like
Mhm.
what we're doing here. But then I came back to where my peers are. So in Reno, my cohort was all younger than me. Students were definitely younger than me. A lot of my colleagues were younger than me. And I also worked at the Sanford Center for Aging. So we were all very age positive, right? I come back here and I'm like with my peers. So I'm like, are you okay? Like they're just talking about like aging, and I'm getting these
Mm.
memes from like, oh, I'm at the age where I hurt myself just by sleeping or, like, and they're
Yeah.
funny, haha, but
Uh-huh.
I'm very tuned into like ageist talk because so when we start talking about aging that way, we're creating our own internalized ageism, right?
Yes.
So we're just
Yes.
creating this narrative of it sucks. And so I actually reached out to my friend and I'll give him credit. I told him he's inspired my, the book that I'm trying to do an outline on right now. But because I said, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm uh, like all of this ages stuff, what's going on? He's like, "Well, you just got to laugh about it." And then I thought, well, okay, so you had talked about grieving single life, and that's something we don't often talk about. We're like, "Oh, well, great, you get to be a mom, and let's just celebrate and forget that you are leaving a certain life behind." Well, for me, aging mindfully includes grieving those
Mhm.
parts, right? Like
Mhm.
grieving and allowing yourself to name it versus then just brushing it by or, to give compassion to this body that has carried you for
Mm.
so long and you've
Mm.
got to experience so many things and then we just bag on it, and I want to shift that. I want to shift that whole narrative. That's big dream big dream talking about wanting to say like, yes, it's not all sunshine and puppies to age. I'm not saying that. There are some real challenges, real tough things, and I think that if we approach it and we say, okay, let's first be aware that I'm being ageist towards others, towards myself. Then can I get curious about where does that live in my body and how do I feel it and what's going on? And then explore the stories you're telling yourself. Are you telling yourself a story? I had a student who in his 30s thought he was middle aged because everyone in his family had passed away in their 60s. So,
Oh, wow.
his perception of what it is to age was shaped by his family. My perception is shaped by my family, where my grandma lived to 93. My husband's grandpa was 97. My great grandma, I don't know how old she was, but I old enough that I knew her. I mean, she didn't pass away till I was in sixth grade. So, excuse me, in my mind, I'm 54. I'm like, okay, I got another 5 decades,
Yeah.
hopefully, or four for sure.
Uh-huh.
And so that's my approach, but not everyone has that. So, like, what is the story you're telling yourself about aging, about your body, about your aging body, like putting those things then together And then how can you bring kind of that nurturing and curiosity and then grief. If you need to grieve it, man. Like it's painful. I mean, the dumbest thing that well, it's not dumb, but like one of the things that I grieve is that, I can't like party like I used to, because I
Yes.
used to.
No, that's not dumb at all. That's so
Okay. Thank you for immediately validating me, because
yes.
that was like it feels like, okay, there are people who have real challenges, and there are real challenges all over the world right now. And so it feels almost foolish, but that is something that comes up because
Mhm.
my brain goes towards like, "Ooh, it's a nice day. Let's have cocktails on the porch," or let's go celebrate, or let's go this. And my body has been kindly for many years going, "Excuse me, I don't like this. Excuse me, I don't like
Mhm.
this." And now, I'm listening to her, and she's appreciative of that.
No, for sure. And I 100% it's not dumb to feel like that at all, especially because like that is something that I 100% also believe in and wholeheartedly agree with. And it's the ways we take care of our body and
Mm,
how we so my approach for sure and listening is that reminder of staying in tune and listening to our bodies and
yeah.
listening to our intuition because that's part of our body. And our body knows. Our body
Mhm.
always knows. It's when we try to fit into society's box
Yeah.
and that's yeah, that I think that's the challenge that many people face is breaking away from society and the norms that society puts on us. I mean, hello, I study sociology, so it's the herd mentality, all of that jazz, like
Right.
100%. It is real. It is real.
Yes.
And and it's hard. So yes, grieve away. I've grieved it so many times, because it's I personally, and it's funny because for loyal listeners who are my friends, they know like when I was in my 20s, oh, the stories I could share, like the things I had done. I went off to I was in school, like I was at a party school, what's considered a party school. I didn't party hard because I had, you and I talked about this briefly on your episode about alcoholism running in my family.
Yes,
So I was
yes.
always very mindful of my drinking, even though
Oh,
there was
sure.
times where I wasn't very mindful.
Sure. Yes, yes, yes. But you were like aware always
Yes,
of
exactly.
that generational or that predisposition
Exactly.
genetically
Exactly. Yes.
to that disease. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
absolutely.
And but now my body, I can't even I smell it. I smell it and it's like, oh no, can't. My body's already getting heartburn.
Right, immediate heartburn. And I heard on another podcast, I don't know who it was, but or maybe it was a reel. I don't know where I get these little nuggets, but I would give credit if I did. Anyways, but they had some sleep person on their show, and might have been Mel Robbins, but she said you can either the sleep expert said you can drink or you can sleep. And I do notice, like, when I have a couple cocktails, because I haven't fully said like, oh no, no more, but I know that I'm inviting, sleeplessness and heightened anxiety. And, so when you pay attention, you can also then pay attention to not just the story about it, but you can actually start, like you said, with the intuition and checking in with your body. Because you're like, if I'm just like, oh, I shouldn't have drank last night, it's like, then I get stuck up here in my head, like, oh, I shouldn't have drank. But really, it's like, well, how do I feel right now? Okay, my heart's racing, my tummy's upset, and all of those things. And then I can go like, oh, is that how I want to feel? And sometimes I choose like, yeah, I want the couple cocktails with a friend or with my husband, but then I can't beat myself up, right?
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah.
what I was doing, is beating
Mhm.
myself up like, why'd
Mhm.
you do it, blah blah. And it's like,
Mhm.
okay, that's a choice you made, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. 100%. And I think that it's also very important to give ourselves grace that
Yes.
it's not going to come out. And we learn when we keep going and we'll figure it out. But
Yep.
giving ourselves grace on our journey it's the most important thing we can do
Yeah.
because as I always tell everyone, it's like you got to be nice to yourself because the world is already mean to you. Why are you going
Yeah.
to be the other person that's mean to yourself? Like, no, like
Yes.
let's not. Um,
Well,
so
that's how
this is
well, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, no, no. Go ahead, go ahead.
That's how I got in. I mean, like my initial foray into like body work or befriending my body was I was, in my 20s and I had gained a lot of weight and I just beat myself up. Oh my God, I beat myself up so
Mm,
much. And then
yes.
I realized one day I was like, wow, I would not talk to anyone in the world the way I'm talking to myself right now. So I started shifting my language then because I real like you're saying, like, why, don't be mean to yourself, but that's a big ask. I mean, like self-compassion and giving yourself grace for whoever's struggling, if anyone's struggling with that listening, that is like a tough call. And I
Yes.
will say that, and you're doing it right now, but like if you put your hand to heart center,
I do it all the
that
time.
so do I, because you actually then are releasing oxytocin into you're releasing that comfort to your own body. And so like that might be the first step, right? Maybe your mind is still messy, but you go like, okay, Dr. T and Crystal was talking about like, oh, put your hand to your heart. And then that might be enough to remind you to be like, okay, now what do I do? Okay, maybe being nice is too big of a stretch, but maybe I can be neutral, or maybe I can be curious about
Mm,
like that, like, wow, would I talk to anyone like that? And
mm-hmm.
then just let it unfold, because I think people will hear sometimes, you know, love yourself, be kind to yourself, and they're like, no way, like then I'm going to be
Easier said than done.
lazy. Yes, exactly. And or I'm going to be lazy, or I'll lose my motivation. And yeah, so just baby steps, hand to heart
100.
center.
Oh, I love it. It's I love that you're talking about that because that's the reason why I do put my hand over my heart. It's actually I didn't know I was releasing Oxycontin, so I learned something new.
Oxytocin, not oxycontin.
Oxytocin, Oxycontin. Clearly, my mind is somewhere else, but that's because that's how it feels. It does feel like a
Yeah.
natural high. It
Oh, it
does
is.
feel like it feels really good. So,
Yeah. It's
not
the
that I
it's
would know
the
about that.
sometimes people call it the
Oxytocin.
cuddle,
Uh-huh.
the cuddle hormone. Or
Yes.
like it's like the
Yes.
the maternal, so it releases that feel good. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
exactly right. What you're feeling is
Mm-hmm.
what's happening in your
Yeah,
body.
for sure.
And
That is so
yeah.
funny. And I didn't know that. How I always felt it as was that's how I embody the the feeling of it. Cause it's like, okay, let's feel this. Like, let's take a moment and
Mm,
feel this because this is
hmm.
real.
Yeah.
Because we live in again, my sociology hat's really coming out today. We live
I
in a
love it.
society that is very media driven, very plastic driven, very,
Hmm.
I
Like
won't go down
instant
that rabbit hole.
gratification,
Yes,
all of it.
instant
Yes.
gratification, 100.
Yes. And
And
easy to distract yourself.
yes, it is
Like,
100. Oh,
so when you're saying like, this is real, feel this, that is like, this is real, feel this, because we can not feel anything we don't want to feel.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Whether it's, through whatever, kind of numbing agent we're
Yeah.
we're doing.
Yeah, 100. I agree
Hmm.
with it wholeheartedly. And that's why I always tell a lot of my clients and even my friends, like, especially because and you probably have come across this, especially as well, I'm curious. Is your niche like, do you work with people who are considered older, or it's just I'm curious because that I didn't get that far because I was like, well, I like her. And I'm not even, I don't know. Would she work with me?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I actually have had a range, like the handful of clients I've had, I have had people who come to me because they're grieving. And that whatever their age were, but they came to me through grieving. And then one of them referred a young mom who, she was just kind of losing it with her kids, her words, not mine. And she gave me a testimonial. So you can read it. I'm not calling her out, or miss anyway. So but she is so she was younger, And then the people that I did my interviews with and the work that I've done, my other research that I've done. So my dissertation was with women 50 and older. And then I had a big research project that I did interviewing women 65 and older about the experience of aging. So we asked all things about, sex, relationships, body image, all of those things in this big interview that we would do. And then people would respond to me back from that, like just saying like, oh, just the ability to talk about that. So I would say my main focus right now is really wanting to go into that professional speaking realm. Like it's like teaching without grading. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, like it's amazing. And so like at the end of April, I did a talk on stress and burnout at a conference. And so I did a 90-minute workshop. And then the next day I did a 2-hour webinar on caregiver grief. And so, I
Oh,
have
that's a major one.
yeah, and it's so important. And so I think I really want to, not I think, I want to focus on building that. Like I said, I'm working with Row House Publishing. Have you ever heard of them?
It's a publishing for books, right?
Yes, yes, yes,
Yes, yes,
yes.
I
Yeah.
have heard of them.
And their area is publishing, unheard voices, so
Hmm.
they really focus on indigenous LGBTQIA people who aren't normally represented. I'm a white woman. I mean, but she she has these sessions called Block to Book, and it's, I don't even know how many weeks it is, but you meet weekly and they talk about like how to write an outline and how to do this. So I've been working with them and not working with them like there's no guarantee that you'll get published, but you can obviously submit your
Hmm.
work to them.
Yeah.
But I've been working on my outline for my book. And so the book that I'm focusing on is The Mindful Aging. But I can talk about all of these pieces. And so I'd love to be an author and a speaker and do some workshops. I have a workshop coming up in June that is in person on mindful aging. So we'll see, so yeah, yeah. So,
I love that. No,
but
I
I also do individual, but it's mostly been focusing on those other areas.
no, I love that for you. I love that this is, I mean, we do need more of this, 100%. I don't know if I had shared this with, I briefly shared about it in the podcast episode, but like I was a personal care attendant
Yes.
the for quite some time. I mean, I wanted to be a CNA. I wanted to be a nurse. Well, my mom wanted me to be a nurse. I got
Let's
to
get
be
it.
honest now
Let's
because
get
I
it
used to say I
straight.
wanted to be. I'm like, no, I never did want to be a nurse. My mom wanted
Oh.
me to be a nurse, and I went
Hmm.
and I was like, I want to be a nurse. Um, and but one of the what paths I had taken with my degree in CNA was geriatrics. Like I loved working in the geriatric field, nursing homes. Like that was my jam. And I actually minored in gerontology
Mm,
because I know sociology and gerontology. I was like, yes,
that's
this is
amazing.
this is where I want to go. And funny, life took me elsewhere, but I do have a very, very whole piece in my heart for the elderly community because it's like, no, like they are the people full of wisdom. They are the ones that we need to listen to them because they are the ones that know what's up.
Yes, and so I mean, so you're bringing up some really great points because, yes, I am gonna nitpick a little bit because not everyone who is older is wise. Like just saying, not saying. I mean, like,
You're right.
there
You
because
absolutely right.
and there are people who are younger who are very wise because they're paying attention, they're introspective, they're trying to do better, like and trying to understand their motivations and be better and do better. So I do want to say older doesn't always equal wiser. And for the people that it does, but in the Wayback Machine, we didn't have the Google. We didn't have like, like all this information at our fingertips. We had to go to our elders. We had to go to the older people to be like, how do you do this? And so there is something lost with that, I think, just on the surface. But when you do intergenerational activities, like I would have my students do, super powerful, right?
It is.
Because, like invariably at the end of a semester, a student would say to me, they're people. And I'm like, yes, they are people. And it's what we do. We other, right? We say, you're over a certain age, you're over here, you're othered, you're this, you're that. And so, how do you get that intergenerational? And then when they did interact, of course they found out they had more in common than they had differences. Like any group that you other, if you get close, you then see them for the individual they are, and you go like, oh yeah, we're human, like we share these things. Absolutely.
Mm, yes, yes, yes. So true. So absolutely true. I 100% agree with you. That's exactly how I feel as well when it comes to just knowing that, yeah, I just have a very, very, I'm telling you, very soft spot for them. But when we do, we other people.
Mm-hmm.
We do tend to other people a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
when we do that, we do miss out on opportunities. We miss out on learning, on growing, on
Yeah.
expanding. Because you're right, there are some people who not age does not define wisdom for sure. Wisdom is all based on how you take on life's challenges. And some people
Yes.
do not learn from life's
They
challenges.
do not. They do not. I know a few myself. Yeah. So and also, yeah, this idea of, being an older adult, and what does that mean? But it starts now, right? Like it starts with, and that's what I would tell the students. I would be like, okay, pay attention. What are you doing? Like when you see, like one woman had and then I'd have them write about it. So I'm like, I'd have them pay attention to ageism and things like that, notice in their own lives, and then write about it. And then I would read these papers, and oh my God, like, one woman was talking about how her knee-jerk reaction was when an older couple came into the coffee shop. But then she was like, okay, so, how am I talking to them? And they ended up having a really pleasant exchange because she paused and was able to check her internal biases and say like, well, wait, why am I doing this? Hey, I teach it. I am very keyed into it, and I would tell this story because, about 3 years ago, and so the story continues. I was driving and I was behind someone who I thought was going far too slow, and I can get a little, agitated on the road, and I try. But anyway, so but I'm agitated, and I can see a cap, and I'm like, and my first thought was, oh, there's an old dude in front of me and he's pick up the pace, like, and so I had that very natural, prejudice and stereotype pop up. And when I sped by them and gave the scowl, I saw that it was a young woman wearing like a driving cap. And I was like, and then I had to laugh about it, right? So I can't say and beat myself up about it, but I share that because it's a practice. All of this is a practice, right? Like we're here and we're doing our best. And when you mess up, be aware of it and go like, oh yeah, I want to do better next time, or I want to at least, check in with that. And just one more funny driving story that popped into my mind was, so do you know the loving kindness practice? Like where it's meta, and so you offer someone you're very close to, like, may you be well, may you be safe, may you be this. And then you offer like a stranger that. And it's a meditation practice. And so you kind of go through
No, I
these
never heard of
layers.
this.
Oh, it's
Hmm.
beautiful practice. And then you
Yeah.
layer out, right? And so then you deal with someone that's challenging to you, not the most challenging, but, and you say this set set amount of phrases, and then you expand it out to your community, to the state, to the country, to the, and you're really saying all beings, right? May you be
Yeah.
safe, may you be at ease, may you be well in body, mind, and whatever phrases you use.
Mhm.
And but my sister, when she had learned that practice, she's like, oh, I'm doing that when I'm driving. So if someone frustrates me, I offer them loving kindness. And so I was driving, again, meditation teacher trained, all that stuff. I'm driving, someone cuts me off, and all I could do, I couldn't think of any of those beautiful phrases. All I could do is I yelled, I was like, loving kindness. That's all I could do. That's all I could do. I was so mad at being cut off, but it was, the intention was there. And so I think that
Yeah.
anyone listening, like wherever you are at in your journey, it's showing up, seeing if you can be curious, if you can have a sense of humor, if you can treat yourself with that little bit of kindness, and then go like, yeah, we're all freaking human, man, doing the best we can.
Yes, yes. It's funny. So I didn't, I guess I do that. I just didn't know that's my phrase is bless them, change me.
Oh, that's lovely.
That's my phrase to every little irritation, to every
Okay.
moment. Bless them, change me to and I mean to everything. My kids, my ex-husband,
Wow,
my
that is
cats,
powerful. That's
everything.
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And since you began doing that, what do you notice?
Um, j- what I've noticed is more like me being centered with myself, because
Mm,
I shared this with you on the podcast episode. So again, listeners, if you haven't heard that podcast episode, be sure to go back and rewatch it. I mean, it was such a good episode
it's
and
so
so
fun.
engaging. Dr. T and I really are meant to do this together.
I believe so. Yeah, yeah. We're we're
But
we're a whole
yeah,
package
no,
right now.
absolutely. And so I really walked along in my life blaming everyone for my problems. I really was the
Mm,
martyr. 100%. I played the martyr role very well. I truly believed it. I embodied the martyr role. And when I went into my 12-step recovery program, that's where I learned that phrase of bless them, change me.
mm,
Because what a lot of people don't realize is how the disease of alcoholism affects people. If the way it affected me was, in order for me to feel safe, I needed to be in control.
right.
And the thing is, no one's in, like, when you control is an illusion. And
Yes, it is.
so
Yes, it
I truly
is.
always thought that I could control my ex-husband, I can control my kids, I could fucking control the weather. Like
Right.
that's how much like I just needed to feel control. And so when my sponsor said, bless them, change you, and I go, huh. I've been saying this phrase for about 4 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, 3.5, 4 years almost. And I do it. It's that reminder for me of I'm not here to save them. I'm not here to
Mm,
control them. I'm not here to change the path.
yeah.
I'm here on my path. Like I'm on my own journey. So that's how Bless Them Change Me has really affected me. It's that reminder of stay in my lane, focus on me.
Mm,
Eh, I can't because that was another part of my growing up was that I always wanted to feel in control and I wanted to help everyone and
sure,
heal
sure,
everyone and take
sure.
care of everyone and bless them. At this point, it's like, nope, I'm just going to bless you and focus on me.
I love that. So there's so many things that come up as you're talking, because I'm like, number one, the fact that you can just calmly say that you were, in a martyr role shows me how much healing you've done, right? Because usually that's an icky thing to realize about yourself, or at least it was
Oh, yeah.
maybe for me,
No,
that
it was trust.
but you say it so like, just so like,
I
blah, blah,
say it
blah, and
with
I'm like,
grace
wow.
after a lot of tears,
Yes,
a
yes. I
lot
mean,
of
but
breakdowns.
I want to say that's beautiful, and just really honor that, because that is not an easy place to see like where you are, the common denominator, or where, you were part of the issue.
Mhm.
And I have a and then saying that phrase also gives that pause, right? It gives the pause, not only like not focusing on them and what they're doing, but it gives you a pause to like respond in a different way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're not responding of, you did this or you did that. It's more like, oh, okay, so bless you. I don't know what's going on here, but I'll work on me. And that's all
Mm-hmm.
I can control is
Mm-hmm.
like how I respond, which is so
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And hanging on my wall, my sister did some lettering, and the phrase that I use is, I honor your life's journey.
Oh, that's a
Right?
good
Like
one.
just I honor your life's journey. Like I don't know what lesson you're supposed to learn. I don't know, but I honor you. You are on your own path. And
Mm-hmm.
I too would be the one that was like trying to fix or solve or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's exhausting. It's
It is.
exhausting. And just today in meditation, I was like, oh man, like just this is my life and I get to live my life. And other people get to live their life, and it might sound so rudimentary or so like, well, duh, but for me, the outward gaze and the people pleasing and all of those things, I was like, wow, like this is my life and I do get to live it, and how beautiful that I have this
Oh,
opportunity to live life.
Dr. T, you and I are energetically aligned hardcore. I meditated earlier today, and that was the exact same.
Stop, that's amazing.
That was the exact same thought I was
Oh,
receiving of like, God, like my life really is good. Yes, I have problems. Yes, it's not
sure.
perfect. Yes, there's things that I want to fix, but I really am like I'm living and I am
Yeah.
thriving and this is a blessing. And your day, I'm like, I had the same meditation earlier today too.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that synergy, and yeah, because it's such a gift to realize that, yeah, I mean, neither one of us are saying like, oh, it's just smooth sailing, but I am inviting, this is my new thing because I used to say all the time, if I didn't learn the hard way, I wouldn't learn at all. And I did learn the hard way. I mean, like that was like my like bumping up against walls was like my MO, right? And so then I was
Mhm,
like, no, I want to learn the easy way. I want to learn with ease and with joy. And and so that's what I mean, going back to when we were talking about language matters. So, yeah, there are challenges, but how are we meeting those challenges? How are we responding? Are we giving ourselves compassion when we need it? And the messy middle, building a business. I mean, both you and I mean, I mean, I'll speak for myself. There's been moments like in January, I think it was January, I had my first ever panic attack. I have never had a panic attack. And it was situational based because, it was like, where is this going? And thankfully that has shifted and I'm like, okay, I'm on the right path. The unfolding's happening. I can't see it, but I have evidence that it will be better than I could imagine. And I know I'll
yes,
look back. I know I say it, but I know I will look back and go, wow, that was better than I thought it could be
yes,
because it's
yes.
happened, so I trust that, and that's where I'm woo adjacent because
I love it. I mean, you're preaching to the choir over here. 100% relate. That resonates so deeply because it's true when we and that's what it sounds like, with your life's journey of what you shared with, the I'm gonna call them the odd jobs at this point now because they were, I mean, looking back, they were like, yeah, those were odd. So
I love it. I love
your
it.
odd
I'm gonna
beginnings. Um,
Yes.
but it also sounds like you were living odd beginnings because you were not you hadn't discovered what it is that what brought you light or you were surviving the best you could and now you're like no I have a good loving supportive partner that's
Hmm.
believes in me and that helps you really
Yeah.
continue on your journey because belief is it's powerful
Yeah.
so
And
powerful.
and to have that, yeah, that reflected in that strong, like, I mean, dude put, not to be like money where his mouth is, because like moving across country is not cheap, and then moving back across country, not inexpensive. And when you were just saying that about the odd jobs, I when I first met Charlie, because all I knew was like paycheck to paycheck, right? Like as long as
Mm-hmm.
I had my steady, twice a month paycheck, I was fine. And I told Charlie that at one point and I don't know, you might not remember this commercial, but we could maybe find it and link it. But there was a commercial way back that was like little kids dressed up in like business clothes, and there's a kid that goes, I want to file all day long. Okay, so that commercial was going on, and I told Charlie, I was like, I don't care if I file all day long, it's fine. Like, you can put me in front of the most boring task and I'll just boop 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 get it done as long as I'm getting. And that was where my mentality, that was,
Mhm.
I didn't even know that good, great, googly moogly. I did not know that this could be my life. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I just thought, oh, you slog, and then you die,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you have moments of joy in that. But that's what was evident, or that's what I witnessed in people in my
Mhm.
life. And, so to be at this stage of like, wow, like maybe I can, really make a difference. And in, I always say, and like before I do my podcast or join someone else, I'm always like, I just want, if someone's listening and they take away one thing or it's meaningful in some way, then that does it for me. Those little ripples that continue
Yeah.
on that I might never know about. But
Mhm.
to go from like I could file all day long to Dr. T, come on. Like, no, I mean, no one, like I would never have guessed that this
Yeah.
is where I'd be.
I I hear you, and I'm so glad that this is where you are.
Me
So glad, so
too.
blessed
Me
and honored
too.
to have you here today, just sharing all of this, all of these nuggets. I like to call them medicine. You're offering so much medicine to the
Thank
listeners
you.
because someone needs to hear all of this, and I know it. I love this. So before we end, I do want to give you the space to talk about your meditations because I did. So it's so funny on your podcast when you were talking about your medication, your meditations on your website. I thought you were talking about the finding your feet meditation. So when you said what's the name, I thought, wait, there's more than one. And so that like got me thinking, wait, there's more than one.
Like the Ginsu. I don't know if you remember those commercials. Anyways, that there might be generational difference there too. So my website is ccwithdrt.com, ccwithdrt.com. I'll be revamping it, but there's, you can click on, I have a couple websites. I have a couple meditations there. I also have a befriending the body bundle. So if that tickled anyone's interest, that comes with like a workbook and then a compassionate body scan, so that you can start making friends with your body. And I just share the things that, were helpful for me, and hopefully they'll be helpful for others if they are
I love
interested.
that.
And then Insight Timer. Do you know Insight Timer, the app?
No,
It's
no, I don't. I've never
IN
heard of that one.
Yeah, it's INSIGHT, so
Hmm.
Insight Timer. And they have a free version and then they have a paid version. And I have 3 or 4 meditations that are available on the free meditation. So I'll give you those
Oh,
links. And so there's
yeah,
different meditations there that you can check out if people are interested. One is finding your feet, but it's different from the one that's on my website, but
yeah.
whatever.
No, I
And
think
so
that's
that's
great.
yeah, and so that's super helpful. And I do upload meditations there,
Hmm.
not consistently, but I'm working on consistently so that if you follow me on there, then you'd get notified of new
Yeah,
meditations. And then right now I don't have any. I have courses where I've done work with, like grief. So I had a navigating grief kind of, one was a webinar and one was an in-person. And so I have those things, but if people are interested, there's a little box that they can check like, hey, I'm interested in this. And then when I offer it again, I would reach
yeah.
out to them and let them know. But yeah, and then my podcast is called Creating Connection with Dr. T. And you are on episode 16. And I am just so delighted. Thank you so much for having me on your show. And yeah, I appreciate you.
No, thank you. No, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for creating these meditations, to going back to everything what we've really been talking about today, which is, aging and being mindful, listening to your body. Um, Meditations are for me has saved my life. Like
Mm-hmm.
and it's so funny. I was if you would have met me, I would say about 3, 4 years ago, I could not like a meditation. sounded impossible. I had tried, trust me, I had tried multiple
Sure.
times to meditate, but I just never found it. And until I started realizing, oh, like meditation is not necessarily like having to cross my legs and go, like that's not meditation,
Right,
because
right.
that's how I envisioned it.
Yeah, that's
Um,
how it's marketed.
exactly. And the reason why I bring all of this up, especially for the listeners out there, the podcast, the not the podcast episode, but the meditation that I listened to of Dr. T's, which is finding your feet, it was a 3 minute, it was like what,
Yeah,
three and a half, like
yeah, something like
short
that.
and sweet. And that right there, it's even if it's throughout your day, even if it's just a moment to a
Mhm,
take a break, stop what you're doing
mhm.
and breathe it out, or even pop in a 3 minute meditation, because I truly thought meditating for me, like it meant an hour, like in silence. Like, no,
Yeah,
there's all kinds of ways. The secret is finding a way to quiet your mind, because that's when
yes.
you go into a meditative state, is quieting your mind, and it looks different for everyone. And so I loved that the finding your feet meditation was short and sweet. um it helped me. I mean, I love practicing staying grounded and staying in the present
Mhm.
moment. Hello, the name of my business is Love Your Now Comadre, which is all about loving your now, because that's the
Yes.
only thing that we
That's
have is
the only thing
today.
we have. I do I appreciate that because I really like, I mean, yes, I have meditated for an hour when I was on retreat. It's glorious. It's lovely.
It
And it's
is.
hard AF,
It
like
is.
totally. And when people can find these moments in their day, like you said, to be grounded, once you listen to it and then you get that in your head, like, oh, I could just ask myself at any point. I do it myself. Like when I'm trying, like if I'm up in the middle of the night and I can't sleep, if I, because sometimes I forget to remember my tools and,
Mhm.
but then when I do, then I'll be like, where are your feet? And it's such a dumb question. Like it just, because they're always in the present moment. And then I focus on where are my feet and what are the sensations. And you can do that at any point. Like if you're, whoever's listening, if you are in a meeting and it's stressful, drop your awareness to your feet or do that. Like, I mean, hand to heart center is a little more obvious if you're with other people, but I have a friend who she'll hold her own hands like under a table
Mhm.
and just to be like, okay, we're in the present
Mhm.
moment. And so I think that that's so important. And meditation can clear your mind and it can give you access to like what's happening in this beautiful big old brain.
Mhm.
But I don't want people to think that that's the outcome because
Mhm.
sometimes the brain is just active and that's what
Mhm.
the brain does, right?
Mhm.
It's the point is like paying attention and going like, oh wow. Like it's like paying attention to the weather in the sky, right? It's
Mhm.
like, oh, interesting. It's cloudy, it's stormy, it's clear,
Mhm.
and just not judging it and just allowing whatever's happening, but then coming back to the present moment
Mhm.
through your breath, through whatever. And
Mhm.
then in that, you might find that space of clarity and
Yes.
like calm.
Yes.
But I don't want people to think that that's an outcome because I have so many
It's not.
people
Mhm.
say to me, like, they'll go, I can't meditate because I can't clear my mind. And it's like, no, it's not about
Mm.
clearing your mind. It's about allowing what is already happening. Loving your now, sister,
Yes.
loving your now.
Yes, 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 exactly. That's why I always tell people it's not about, you're right, it's not about clearing your mind. It's about quieting your mind, because
Yes.
our thoughts get loud, and
Mhm.
when our thoughts are loud, that's when we're not, for me, and the way I practice meditation in my practice is that's when we're not allowing God to communicate with us. That's not when we're allowing
Yes.
spirit to Gus, as I said on your
Yes,
podcast.
Gus, I love that.
That's
I've
when we're
said that
not
a couple
allowing
times
Gus
now.
to bring in the message, because
Yes.
we find the clear we know the answers to our problems. We absolutely
Yes.
do. We just don't want to hear them because all the other thoughts in our, so it's quieting the
Yes.
mind.
Well, and I like that you said that because and now I'm doing what we call the Minnesota goodbye. So you start saying goodbye and you just talk for
I
another
know.
half hour. But
That's a
but
Mexican thing too, so you're good.
awesome, awesome. So but because you're saying something that's so important is this idea that, one of my students years ago said, meditation student, she said that praying is her talking to God and meditation is listening. Right. And
Mhm.
so, and then about we know the answers. So on my board, and this has been up in every office I've had before I met Charlie, which we're celebrating 19 years of marriage. So well over 20 years. And it
Wow.
says, all that you need to have all that you want lies inside of you right now. Everything.
Ah, I
And
just
that
got
was
chills.
from Notes from the Universe. But and I do, yeah. So all that, yeah, it's all inside, man.
Yeah, it is all inside. Oh, Dr. T, we can talk and talk for hours,
I, I do,
but I know that
I
our
do.
listeners probably are at this point tuning out. So,
Well, thanks everybody for listening and hanging in,
yes,
because this has been
yes,
delightful.
it
I
has
really just
been.
enjoy connecting with you. It's really powerful.
I know. I love this. I love this. And for all of you, just go check out Dr. T's website. Uh, especially if it's just for the meditations, just to find if it works for you. Take what you like and leave the rest. That's how we
Absolutely.
pursue life. Like you got to find on your path, you got to find what works for you. And I swear by the meditations. I really do.
All right. And people can, yeah, they can reach out or follow me on wherever, and
Yes.
I'm around. So
Yes,
thank you.
absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here today, Dr.
Big
T. Thank you
hugs.
so much.
Thank
Yes,
you.
big hugs. Thank you. It was an honor, it was a privilege. This was a joy. Uh yeah, I this was fun. We'll have to do this again for
I
sure.
agree. I agree.
So how I like to end the episode is by giving people what I call cheeseman. That's gossip, but it's
Oh,
literally like the message that spirit wants to share with
oh
everyone.
yes,
So
please.
whatever nugget you want to share, whatever piece of wisdom you want to offer to anyone listening, what are your parting words?
Oh, that's a good one. My I would want people to invite more curiosity into their lives. And if they could
Invite
do
more.
that with like a little investigative spirit, and humor and curiosity, I think that takes people so long, so far. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Have a curious mind.
Yeah,
100%. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much once again. This was fun. We'll have to do it for sure again.
absolutely. Big love fest.
Oh,
Okay, I'll
thank you.
talk to you later.
Oh, all right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for being here today. With all of that, I am sending you all so much fire and butterflies. And as always, don't forget, love your now. Bye.
Bye.